Esther was a young woman blessed with 2 sons. Her first son was about 5 years old, and her second was just a year old. She loved them fiercely, with a passion so deep it felt as though her very life depended on them. Her husband drove a taxi, struggling day and night to provide for the family, while Esther sold palm oil in the market. Life was not easy, but they managed. The day she gave birth to her second son was the happiest of her life. She was overwhelmed with joy, not knowing that the birth of this child would shake the very foundations of hell. For from that day, strange and terrifying things began to happen. Not long after her second son's birth, Esther began to have troubling dreams. A tall, fierce-looking woman appeared again and again, always trying to take her baby from her. One night, she dreamt she was in a small hut in a remote village, singing to her baby. Somehow, she dozed off. When she woke up inside the dream, her son was gone. Panic gripped her heart as she rushed outside, crying and singing sorrowfully, searching everywhere. Then she saw it, her baby's clothes hovering above a deep pit, about to fall in. With trembling hands, she ran, snatched the clothes, and clutched them tightly against her chest. Weeping, she returned to the hut, only to find her son inside, crying. She embraced him, scolding him through her tears. "Why would you want to leave me in this lonely world?" But suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Esther opened it and saw a towering woman standing there. "I am looking for the boy," the woman said. With tears streaming down her face, Esther replied firmly, "You cannot have him." Supernatural strength surged into her as she slammed the door and held it shut while the giant woman pushed from outside. The struggle continued until, finally, the woman left. Esther woke up from the dream, drenched in sweat and trembling in fear. She turned to her son, sleeping peacefully, and touched him, only to find his body burning with a high fever. Just before bed, he had been completely healthy. Esther knew instantly that the dream was connected. In desperation, she rushed him to her small church. The pastor prayed over the boy and told her, "This child is a special child. Hell has been unleashed against him, but he cannot die." Even as the pastor spoke, the little boy began shaking violently with fever. Church members gathered, praying fervently as Esther wailed. Minutes later, his temperature dropped. The pastor advised her to take him to the hospital. Her husband arrived with his taxi, and together they rushed their son there. At the hospital, the situation grew worse. The boy was losing blood rapidly, and the doctors could not find a match in the blood bank. Esther cried uncontrollably as she called everyone she knew. Thankfully, her husband's brother arrived, and his blood matched the boy's. A transfusion was carried out, and soon the doctors announced that he was doing well. But the relief was short-lived. Suddenly, a nurse screamed, her son was vomiting strange green substances. When the doctor checked him, he shook his head sorrowfully and declared, "He is gone." Esther collapsed to the floor, screaming and calling on God. Nurses tried to pull her away, but she clung to her lifeless child, shouting, "He is not dead. God promised me I would not lose him." The doctor finally ordered the staff to leave her alone. Alone in the ward, Esther locked the door, pulled out her Bible and anointing oil, and prayed desperately for over 2 hours. She sprinkled oil over his body, weeping, shouting, and calling on God. Then, suddenly, her lifeless son opened his eyes and called weakly, "Mommy." Esther was stunned. She grabbed him tightly and ran out, screaming for the nurses. At first, they laughed, thinking grief had driven her mad. But when they entered the ward, they saw the boy sitting up, alive, covered in oil. The entire hospital was shaken. Some cried, some knelt down, and many gave their lives to Christ that day. The strange dark cloud that had hovered over the hospital vanished instantly. Meanwhile, Esther's first son, Daniel, was still in school. School had closed by 12 noon, but by 2 p.m., no one had come for him. He stood at the school gate, crying, until a strange man approached. "Why are you crying, my son?" the man asked. "I want to go to my mommy," Daniel replied tearfully. "I will take you to her," the man said kindly. Daniel, only 5 years old, followed him without question. The man carried him through the busy hospital corridors, yet strangely, none of the nurses or patients saw them. The man led him directly to the ward where Esther was with his younger brother. The boy opened the door and ran to his mother. Esther was shocked. She asked who had brought him, and he replied innocently, "One uncle saw me crying and said he would bring me to you." The hospital staffs were stunned. No one had seen the man. Later, when Esther's husband and his brother arrived, they confirmed they had not picked Daniel up. Then it became clear to everyone, an angel had brought him safely to his mother. That night, while still at the hospital, the dark cloud returned. Around midnight, her son's fever came back violently. As the doctors struggled, the boy suddenly screamed, "Mommy, she's here. The giant woman." Esther, terrified but unshaken, grabbed her oil and began to pray over him. Each time he cried, "She touched me," Esther would anoint and pray louder. He shouted, "She's on the roof." Esther prayed with all her strength until finally, the boy said, "She's gone." Instantly, his fever disappeared, his temperature returned to normal, and the cloud vanished. That was the last time the demonic attack ever came. The boy was discharged the next day. He grew up healthy, strong, and later became a very wealthy man who lifted his parents out of poverty. The devil had fought to destroy him, but God had declared that his destiny would stand. As Esther always said, this can only be God. The end.